Hello everyone, welcome to the best place for the best takes. I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show. Of course, I'm going to talk about football today, but what's taking over headlines over the weekend, and rightfully so, futbol, FIFA fever, soccer is right now at the top of everybody's mind, especially since today, Monday, was the United States men's national team's opening match. It was against Wales. They opened up the match very early on with an amazing goal, and then unfortunately lost the game, but kind of lost the opportunity, the moment in the 90th minute when Wales scored. They now open up their first match with a draw. I've talked a lot about NFL football, and rightfully so, through 11 weeks of the NFL season, and I've kind of stayed away from talking too much about college football just because it's no secret. I show favoritism towards greatness and towards elite level play, and to me, the NFL, as great as the college stories are, and as great as the emotions running high are, and the feelings and the fans, I love high level of execution when it comes to football being played. And to me, the NFL is the epitome of that. But I am not breaking that rule, but certainly bending it, because what we observed over the weekend was the Heisman moment that everyone is talking about. Caleb Williams, USC. What a game. What a matchup. This was the time to see if USC was the team to beat or not. Yes, we know the conversations. Lincoln Riley in a stunner, leaving Oklahoma. The team is doing relatively well. He is successful. People are criticizing the team because their defense really isn't, they don't think it's legit. They don't think they've faced a legit defense. Everybody's going in on Caleb Williams. Everybody's ready to pick at something. And I'm the first one that believes the strength of your schedule matters. Competition matters. Let me just say, you don't have to have the best competition to know when someone's great. Caleb Williams, forget the Heisman moment. To me, he already was the Heisman. I'm glad he's kind of proved it to everyone else. And if you don't think he is, then you're not watching college football. He is the best player in college football. He's the most valuable player in college football. He is the embodiment of the Heisman Trophy. That trophy goes to him. The criticism that I'm seeing, though, is that his style of play, that would never work against a legit defense. USC hasn't faced a legit defense yet. They're playing in the Pac-12. And your schedule, while it does matter, look at what's happening with TCU. Undefeated up until this point. At the end of the day, you can't help but deal with the guys that are put in front of you, the team that is put in front of you each week. And these teams don't know they're going to go undefeated or have this great run. They don't assume that. Of course, you hope for it. But realistically, coaches and programs and athletic directors don't expect that. So when a TCU goes undefeated, a USC does relatively well, is almost undefeated, the world starts to get mad because late in the season, you talk about right now in the current college football playoff picture, only 4 teams get in. Do they really deserve to get in? I don't think TCU, for example, deserves to get in. And that's going to sound ironic considering the argument I'm about to make. But to me, they really haven't faced anybody. And they don't have a single player that I'm like, that's one of the top 5 players in the country right now in college football. USC is the opposite of that. Caleb Williams is not just one of the top 5 best players in college football. He is the best player. And I know people fell in love with Bryce Young and with Bo Nix early on in the season after that loss. And you love what you see with these guys and what you expect. You like the Bryce Youngs, you like the Bo Nix, you like what Georgia's got going on with Stetson Bennett. But at the end of the day, Bryce Young has proven to be what he is. He has showed you flaws in big moments. Bo Nix has proven to not necessarily be a playmaker in the biggest moments. And when you're talking about Stetson Bennett, I think his leadership is excellent. I think it's exactly what you want leading your team. But he's not a pro-style quarterback. He's just not. The size, the stature, the playmaking ability, it's not there for me. So while, once again, college football, great story, he's not a transcendent talent. Caleb Williams is. And the fact that he's a sophomore right now is interesting because he's not draft eligible yet. He can't declare yet. But to me, if he was right now a third-year player that could declare for the draft at the end of the season, he would be the first guy off the board. Caleb Williams would be the number 1 undisputed draft pick off the board, number 1 quarterback, 1 of 1. Because to me, Caleb Williams displays all the important things you want in your quarterback. And most importantly, let's be honest here. If you're actually watching those games with an open mind, Caleb Williams is the closest thing to Patrick Mahomes since Patrick Mahomes burst onto the scene in his first full year with the Kansas City Chiefs when he lit up the league and won MVP. His playmaking ability, his ability to improvise, the sidearm, the quick shovel passes, the plays breaking down in the pocket, rolling out to the right and to the left side, and making huge plays downfield with his tight ends, with his receivers, with the getting everybody involved, not just the elite talent that you expect to beat you. His ability to distribute the football, to get everyone involved without an Andy Reid. I understand that Lincoln Riley is an excellent head coach. I think he'll be league ready in a couple of years. He might already be. But the fact that you have someone like that is so disciplined, yet so gutsy when it comes to those big moments. I mean, Caleb Williams embodies what you want in your franchise. And I can't help but wonder, who's going to be at the top of the board next year when he most likely declares? Would it be a Panthers? Would it be the Jets? But they've shown they can be just good enough to not get a top draft pick. It's too early to think about that. But to those who have criticized Caleb Williams, I think I know why. We have been spoiled in recent years of college football. In years past, I'm talking 8-10 years ago, you saw guys like Marcus Mariota and Cam Newton and guys who did great and burst onto the scene but didn't necessarily have the ultimate amount of success. Quarterbacks who were amazing but weren't necessarily not national champs. They didn't make it all the way. Then in recent years, what did we have? Trevor Lawrence, national champion. Joe Burrow, national champion. Tua, national champion. We got spoiled. We got used to the top quarterbacks going to the top teams and then winning the whole thing. And USC could very well accomplish that this season because right now it looks like they're going to be in the Final Four. Their toughest matchup was UCLA. They beat the run game. They beat Chip Kelly. They beat Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who I understand was injured, but come on, he was fighting through that. And to me, what I find so interesting as well is not only did Caleb Williams kind of seal the deal on the offensive side of the ball with that clutch final offensive drive, but the biggest criticism for USC, their defense, that their defense hadn't faced anybody legit, that their defense was weak, that they weren't able to lock anybody down. Who closed that game? Who got the turnover? It was USC's defense. An excellent quarterback in Thompson-Robinson, very capable. Everybody loves him. He's an excellent guy, excellent playmaker, elite tier guy in college football. But USC's defense, who's been criticized for not being up to par, was the one who sealed that game. Whether you guys like it or not, could there be a potential upset moving forward for USC? Of course, it's college football. We saw Tennessee drop this weekend to a team that should have never beat them. And look at what happened. They're probably going to drop out of the top four, and they can't work their way back this late in the season. But USC just finished facing their toughest test, one that at one point early on in that game looked like they were going to lose. They came back. They showed you everything you needed to see on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And now you can legitimately talk about them as, hey, those guys are for real. They could be in the Final Four. While I don't expect USC to win the whole thing because there are better teams involved, you can't deny it. Excellent coach, good offense, the best quarterback in college football. And when you've got one of the best head coaches in college football, and by far the best player, I don't think they'll win the national championship, but I wouldn't be shocked. And I feel that that's the only reason why we are doubting Caleb Williams, the ones that are left anyways. Oh, he's not a national champion. Because we have this recency bias of the guys coming out of the draft who we consider to be the best quarterbacks being the ones who won it all. And Caleb Williams, as a sophomore, hasn't done that yet. He didn't have a chance at Oklahoma. Now, he may very well have a chance with Lincoln Riley in a big market for college football, a historic place that has the financial resources, the alumni, and just the overall pull now to really get some great guys in the building and maybe make a run at the unthinkable for a program who would have dreamed to have been in this position but never thought it could be a reality just 4 or 5 years ago. Caleb Williams is the real deal. He's the Heisman. And to me, he is next in line. He's the closest thing we have ever seen come out of the draft since Patrick Mahomes. And that's undeniable. So for the college football fans, hopefully you enjoyed that story. You're glad I finally talked about them. Once again, I do show favoritism. I'm not secretive about that. I don't hide it. If you're elite, if you're great, I'm going to talk about you. That's why you don't hear me bringing up the Detroit Lions as the opening story to the show. There's nothing there. With Caleb Williams there is, and with this story, there's most definitely greatness. Patrick Mahomes over the weekend reestablishing himself as the number one guy in the NFL, and certainly at this point, the leader of the MVP race. I think Tua is maybe 1A, 1B in there, or he's in second place in that conversation, tied in second place. But the Dolphins had a bye week, and Patrick Mahomes once again on prime time in the biggest moment against the division opponent who we thought was going to be a Super Bowl contender going into the season. He's now 2-0 against them. He's got them good this season. And, you know, the NFL is so lucky to have a guy like Patrick Mahomes who, for the next 10 years, will be a great representative of the league. Not doing anything off the field that would shock you in a bad way. Always says the right thing. Is always very complimentary towards not only his teammates, but his opponents. He talked great about Justin Herbert all week leading up to the game. And once again, shows that he's a man of class in the biggest moment after a highly emotional, very intense fourth quarter against an excellent team and an excellent quarterback in Justin Herbert and the Chargers. So, where does this leave Kansas City now? It's not that surprising. The lead seed, the number one seed in the AFC right now, the leader in their own division, the leader in the conference, Patrick Mahomes, the leader of the MVP race, Travis Kelce, showing that he is, in fact, a wide receiver one there. Even if he's not the wide receiver, he is still very much receiver one for that team. An excellent first option for Mahomes. And Andy Reid looks better than ever. In a game where they didn't have their two wide receivers who had done the most for them up until this point in the season. Juju, who had been the big body on the opposite hash of Kels, who was really able to spread the offense. They didn't have him. He was missing. Clyde Edwards-Helaire going out with the ankle injury. Getting Isaiah Pacheco involved, who's been excellent this season. Who was probably officially the running back one for the Kansas City Chiefs. Getting everybody involved. And a great stat that Chris Collinsworth, or not a stat, but an observance that Chris Collinsworth made yesterday on the game that I did not know up until that moment. So many guys on the Kansas City offense have played quarterback at one point in their life. Under center, in high school. So that surface level understanding, that base understanding of the position also makes that offense that much more dangerous. Because everybody knows what Mahomes is thinking, how he's going to react, how to make him comfortable, what kind of routes to run, what kind of looks to give him as the quarterback so that he's in a faith to give them the ball in those big downfield passing plays or in those quick RPOs. I mean, the Kansas City offense is so creative. Is led by one of the best in the league in Andy Reid and in Patrick Mahomes. And now add in the fact that these elite, speedy, big body talents also have an understanding of the quarterback position. I mean, you couldn't build a better team in Madden. That is a Pro Bowl offense. They have all proven to be just excellent. And it is shocking that after losing Tyreek Hill, and what was such a big conversation, Mahomes has not missed a beat. Has 6 more passing touchdowns than anybody else. In a couple weeks where Josh Allen has done bad, he has looked better than ever. I mean, there's really no more competition. We loved Jalen Hurts and what he was doing for the Eagles and that story because they were undefeated. Once again, stories matter. But now that they're no longer undefeated, it seems like, okay, so now you do have to go with the best talent on the better record of a team. And Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are right there with the Eagles, 8-2. I mean, they clearly are the team to beat. And to me, once again, proving why the Chiefs are a much better team in the postseason and much more dangerous than the Buffalo Bills. Because the Buffalo Bills haven't shown you consistent greatness. And sometimes, like they said on the broadcast yesterday, and I said it on this show, in order to be the man, you have to beat the man. In order to be the team, you have to beat that team. And so far, in the biggest moments, in prime time, in the playoffs, in the postseason, down the stretch of the season, nobody can get the best of Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Chiefs. So why should we expect anything different? Chargers have been absolutely brutalized by injuries. Buffalo is getting caught in this unexpected slum where it looks like they're getting really sloppy. I talked about Josh Allen enough on this show. I'm not going to talk about it on this week's episode. But it just goes to show you The cream rises to the top. Tom Brady doing well, getting better, looking better than ever. Certainly looking more focused on football than he has been all season. The cream rises to the top. You see that. The Jets now suffering a loss. I mean, things towards the end of the season in November, December, when these games start to matter a little bit more because you're getting a little bit closer to the light at the end of the tunnel, the best teams always find a way to shine through, and the transcendent talents always find a way to come out on top. Patrick Mahomes, leader of the MVP race, leader of the NFL. Who could have guessed it? I think we all could have. You know, it's a motto that sometimes goes by the wayside. Any given Sunday. People have a hard time remembering that when teams like the Eagles get off to this undefeated start, like the Steelers did a couple years back, when the Patriots went perfect in the regular season and then lost in the Super Bowl. It was an outcry. People were so upset. People have a tough time remembering just how hard it is to win the NFL. And the Eagles, coming off a loss, their first loss of the season, a highly emotional game against the Washington Commanders, now on Sunday played a game where once again the pressure was kind of on them since they were expected to win and be heavy favorites against a team with a coach who was only coaching his second NFL game and coaching his second really collegiate or pro game ever. Remember, a lot of criticism around Jeff Saturday and the Colts hire because he only had a little bit of high school experience as a coach and he didn't have that coaching experience that everybody was looking for. He proved some people wrong last week with his win, and now he's kind of got some people questioning it again. And I'm very happy for Jeff Saturday. I think he is a better coach than a lot of people expected. He's definitely a leader of men. He brings out the energy. He makes everybody care about the guy next to them. We're playing for each other. He is a true leader, and that's what the Colts really needed. They needed somebody who could get his arms around everybody, embrace them, and really take them and carry them to the end of the season in what's been a really underwhelming and probably somewhat confusing season for the rest of that roster. But I think there's something to be said about what Jeff Saturday and the Washington Commanders did the previous week to the Eagles. Now I know, like I said, any given Sunday, but the Eagles were down in the fourth quarter against the Colts, a team with only 4 wins in the season, 5 wins in the season, and they almost lost had it not been for the heroics of their best player, Jalen Hurts. What does that tell me? I'm a stats guy. I think they're important. I think the box score isn't everything, but you can certainly look to certain statistics and identify, hey, that's their strength, that's their weakness, or, hey, what's this stat that nobody's talking about? And I think, early in the week, not a lot of people have had a chance to cover this, but I did do my research out of curiosity yesterday and today. Possession time. Now, possession time in the NFL is something that is super valuable, especially for a team like the Eagles that is a run-first team that runs out the clock, that can use up a lot of that clock a lot faster than other teams are accustomed to and faster than even fans are accustomed to. For the first couple weeks of the season, that stretch where the Eagles were undefeated, they were time of possession monsters. And it's not a surprising thing. They're running the ball constantly. They're a run-first team. They have these big plays down the field. Jalen Hurts, who it's like a three-headed monster. Who are they going to give it to run it downfield? Design runs for the quarterback. Very unique schemes that, of course, Nick Sirianni takes advantage of because of the roster that he has. But what happens when a team like the Eagles doesn't have the possession time? We know what happened last week. 40-plus minutes of possession time for the Washington Commanders. They stole the clock away from the Eagles. They took away their ability to make plays and to have the ball in their hands. That's what was the deciding factor in that game. Not as much as we like the quarterback, not Taylor Heineke, not the coach, not necessarily Ron Rivera. It was their ability to maintain possession and limit the amount of turnovers they had. That is a great recipe for beating the Eagles, and it's probably one which more successful, better teams will use if they face the Eagles in the postseason. And once again, not as severely, but definitely significantly, the Eagles had that problem this week once again. The Colts' possession time split with the Eagles, 30 minutes and 38 seconds. a little bit over half, just 38 seconds over the halfway mark. 60 minutes in an NFL game, the Eagles had 29 minutes and 22 seconds of possession time. So just barely, less than a minute, the Colts had more possession time. And that game came down to the wire. What does that tell you? What are the Eagles' weaknesses? The Eagles need to have a healthy split, at least in their case. They need to have a healthy split of the time of possession. They want to run the ball. They want to drain the clock, especially when they're up. That's what they do so well that teams like the Buffalo Bills don't. That run game is elite and can really be the closer in some tough games and some games that down towards the end of the stretch, can get a little bit questionable. Games that become anybody's in the fourth quarter. The Eagles have done a good job of winning those games because of their ability to run down the clock. You take away the opportunity for the team on the other side of the field to make a comeback. What do the Colts have? An offensive line that is one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid in the league. They weren't playing like it through the first couple weeks of the season, but now with Jeff Saturday, one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time, one of the best centers of all time, played with Peyton Manning, has been to a Super Bowl, is a Super Bowl champion, has plenty of success in the postseason. Of course, we knew right away that was going to be the unit that was most affected, especially positively, by Jeff Saturday's arrival. They look way better. What does that do for the Colts? Forget Matt Ryan under center. They're not exactly looking to throw the ball 40 times a game. That's not how you win. You have Jonathan Taylor running the rock, which he does amazing, and we've seen him do well, and he only struggled with earlier this season because the offensive line wasn't giving him good holes to run with. They weren't giving him the opportunity to do so. So Jeff Saturday, not a lot to work with. His offensive line, his running back. He knows if we win, that's our key. And took the game to the fourth quarter. Jonathan Taylor, run the ball, run hard, run downfield, and take away the opportunity for the Eagles to steal away that time of possession and don't turn the ball over. So the Eagles won the game, once again, every given Sunday. I'm not reading too much into it. But sometimes these close games in the later parts of the season, even for the most successful and the most dominant teams against some of the worst teams, they do show you the true colors of a team. And to me, the Eagles, there's a recipe out for them right now. You know, for a team that a couple weeks ago looked unstoppable, they don't look so invincible right now. You know how to beat them. If you have the talent available at the right spots, you know time of possession and limiting turnovers can pretty much be the end of Philly. And it was almost the end for them this weekend. We'll see how the Eagles continue to do. They lead their division. But come postseason time, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond when coaches are emptying the playbook on them. And when they know just exactly how to beat Jalen Hurts and to beat the Eagles. And once again, really quickly before we put a footnote in this story, how did the Eagles win? I don't think it was Nick Sirianni's coaching. It was the ability to improvise, the playmaking ability for Jalen Hurts, getting it done on his feet, which he's extremely great at, is one of the only players in the league that can do that, besides a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes, because he's so athletic. But I don't know. Are those holes going to be that wide open come postseason time? Is that something they can rely on? Jalen Hurts on his feet? You can't rely on that when you have no timeouts or when the clock is winding down. I'm just throwing it out there. I know the Eagles are everybody's favorite story right now, but they do not look as invincible as they did a couple weeks ago. You can't fight that. Joe Burrow is definitely one of the best players in the National Football League, and I think because of that, he's already gained a lot of fans, a lot of young kids that really like his playing style, his swagger, the way that he goes about things, and also his personality on and off the field. His ability to put the previous play behind him and just focus on the next drive and the next play. He's great at that. It's something that he has definitely had to embrace with an offensive line that allows him a lot of opportunities to get sacked and a lot of opportunities to get down on himself. But he has certainly come out on top. And I'm starting to wonder now, as I hear a lot of people talking, are there a lot of Joe Burrow haters out there? Because the way that people get down on him when he starts to struggle, it's just a little bit louder than I'd expect it to be. I don't know if it's because he stormed the entire country's favorite college football teams when he was at LSU in 2019. I'm not sure if it's that or if it's the amazing run that Cincinnati Bengals went on last season. But there are certainly a lot of people that seem like they're out to get him when he struggles. And this was a big moment for him against the division opponent, or division rival that the Bengals had struggled big time against. Of course, Joe Burrow, 3 interceptions in week 1. He hadn't played in the preseason against this Steelers team with TJ Watt at the helm. Of course, he got injured shortly after that game. But now, coincidentally, he was back in the mix. And Joe Burrow did show signs of struggle. They got up early. They had the lead. Towards the end of that game in the third quarter, all of a sudden, 2 big-time interceptions. They came within 10 passes of each other. Joe Burrow could have very easily been shaken up by that. And it wasn't his fault. Like, these were not bad throws. Those interceptions, especially if you heard the broadcasters, they were talking about how those plays were some of the best interceptions they'd ever seen. Did you see how TJ Watt, like an acrobat, jumped up to get that? Out of position. He's not a corner. He's not usually dropping into coverage. He made the play of his life to make that pick happen. Those aren't going to happen very often for Joe Burrow. And yet, in the face of adversity, when he was backed up in his own territory in the fourth quarter with the game on the line, finds a way to comfortably win the game. Back-to-back excellent drives, back-to-back scoring drives, pretty much shutting down the Steelers. And once again, the question continues to come up. If the Bengals are this good and they can run well, what does it look like when Jamar Chase gets back? Jamar Chase, the wide receiver 1, the big-time playmaker. You give Joe Burrow a guy like Jamar Chase, you know what's going to happen. You've seen it. Especially in weeks where he goes from having Jamar to not having him. It's like a welcome back party where he just throws the ball 10 times and Jamar Chase will end up having 9 receptions for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's the kind of playmaker Jamar Chase is. That's why he's one of the best in his position. That's why kids and fans love him, unless you're the opposing team. So it leaves you wondering, how does Jamar Chase's reintroduction into the offense, where does that leave the Bengals? It will leave them in a pretty good spot. The problem is, Joe Mixon's health continues to be a little bit of a problem for them. Joe Mixon, concussion protocol, ankle injuries. He was taken out of that game on Sunday. I mean, these are things that towards the end of the season matter. You want to make sure you're healthy. And I feel like the Bengals can't catch a break. They find a way to look really good with the guys that they have on the field. They find a way to win games. But it's just, they can't catch a break. And for an offense that would be so complete if it was healthy, it's a little bit frustrating, even if you're not a fan, to watch the situations that unravel in Cincinnati and the things that they go to, or the things that they go through on a week-to-week basis. So, Joe Burrow, looking great. Joe Mixon remains to be seen. Jamar Chase is going to return to practice this week, according to the head coach, who talked about it today during a press conference. What does that look like? What does the reintroduction of the big guy look like? Can they get that air raid going? I think Joe Burrow just finds a way to make it work with no matter who is healthy and who's on the field. And that's really admirable. And that's why, to me, Cincinnati is one of those sneaky teams that I think a lot of teams would be scared to face in the postseason if they find a way to make it in. Because that team is just too talented, too gritty, and too unpredictable to really plan for properly or to stop down the stretch of big-time games. Because Joe Burrow, one of the top 5, top 3 best quarterbacks in the game, certainly a guy you can consider to be a closer in those nitty-gritty moments. And he continues to prove week in and week out why he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league and why Cincinnati is going to have to hand him a blank check within the next 12 to 18 months because his price and his stock only continues to go higher as the weeks go on. I'm sure that plenty of football fans turned on their TV at 4 o'clock on Sunday and thought, I'm going to get to watch the Cowboys-Viking game. And they thought they'd get to watch the entire game. And the Vikings' performance was so embarrassing that they got taken off national television. That's the reason why so many people got to see the Bengals-Steelers game, because it was an absolute mercy rule. Dallas would not let up. They were seeking vengeance this week. Everybody knew it. Everyone knew it was a big-time week for Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott, and that whole offense to bounce back. And they had those Dallas Cowboy games where they're firing on all cylinders after a tough loss. And I know people were, some people tagging me on Twitter, some sending me DMs because I've been critical of the Cowboys. And everybody loves to pile on when they're doing great. The Cowboys continuously show you, hey, we're going to perform when people don't expect us to perform. It is the most oxymoronic thing ever. When they're doing well and you expect them to do well, and we talk about what a great defense they have and what a great distributor Dak Prescott can be, everything goes downhill. You expect them to, they're going to have a great season. The end of the season's going to go off without a hitch. They're going to be just fine. They're going to beat the Packers. And then the Packers blow the doors off them when Mike McCarthy strolls back into Green Bay. And then everybody kind of levels their expectations. Because guys like Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy show you, hey, we're good, but we're not great. And that's something that so many people have a hard time acknowledging. Dak Prescott is not a great quarterback. No, he's not. He can be a great distributor at times. He's not a quarterback that I'd pick to start my franchise. He's not a top 5 guy. And sometimes I wonder if he's even top 10. And that's going to upset a ton of people. But there are weeks, if you watch football and if you look at the box score, where Dak, or actually, this is the problem actually. Don't look at the box score. Because Dak will always put up these massive numbers that on paper you're like, he attempted this many passes. He had this many yards. But when you watch the game, if you do watch the game, you realize his decision-making is not exactly great. It's not perfect. He is awful on third down. He can't convert. He can't put his team in a position to win. And what does that tell you? In the situations where there's the most pressure to make a big play happen or to get to the next play, or to move the chains, Dak Prescott just can't do it. So to me, coming off a highly emotional loss, one where they were embarrassed against the Green Bay Packers, a team that has returned to looking awful in Week 11, you realize, hey, the Cowboys aren't exactly a Super Bowl lock, even though people think that they are. What did that tell you more about the Vikings, though, that game? To me, it shows you what the Vikings had trouble doing all season long. The flaws that you had kind of seen, but were disguised by either big plays or good coaching in the moment or a good relationship between Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell or savior plays made by Justin Jefferson, who is one of the best wide receivers in the game right now. But when everything goes south, the Vikings showed you who they are. A defense that we thought was already very questionable. An offense that we thought could potentially get locked down. Why is that? The Vikings, they have Dalvin Cook. They have Madison in the backfield. But to me, the Vikings' run game is not one that I consider to be the best in the league. To me, they're not the Eagles. They're not that. What'll win them games is their passing game. Their ability to make big plays with Justin Jefferson. For TJ Hawkinson to make big plays down the stretch as a big-bodied tight end. For Kirk Cousins to be a great distributor of the football, which he has proven he can be at times. Don't rely on it in prime time. But once again, it kind of shows you where the Vikings are at. A defense that's not perfect and an offense that is led by a capable, but a lot of the times underwhelming quarterback in Kirk Cousins. And a couple weeks ago, people got really mad because what comparison did I make? Dak Prescott to Kirk Cousins. An almost identical passer rating over the course of the last couple of years. And many a times, in individual seasons, Kirk Cousins actually having a better overall QBR. That can't be denied. I know you love Dak. He is a quarterback of what you claim to be America's team, which has not been America's team in my lifetime. But Dak Prescott is a good distributor of the football who really doesn't scramble, who has not used his legs since his injuries. Let's be honest here. Let's acknowledge certain things that everybody's kind of tiptoeing around and afraid to mention. Dak Prescott got his money after that big injury and has decided, I'm not risking my career anymore. I'm not scrambling. And that is a bit of a mistake for him, because it's what made his game so great. It's what makes a Mahomes great, a Josh Allen great, a Jalen Hurts great, a Lamar Jackson great, even a Joe Burrow great. I've gotten injured. I've, ankles, knees for Mahomes and Joe Burrow, but I'm not going to stop playing football. I want to win. I'm going to roll out to the right. If I see a QB draw open up, I'm going to take that run. Dak Prescott refuses to leave the pocket. And when he does, it's to throw the ball. Dak doesn't run anymore. He refuses to do so. One of the better elements of his game has been absent for the last 2 seasons. So Dak really is closer to Kirk Cousins than a lot of people want to acknowledge. Kirk Cousins doesn't run. Neither does Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott looks like an athlete. We know he can run based on prior seasons, but we haven't seen him do it recently. Good distributors of the football, are great when things are going great. Head coaches that we believe to be good but have shown us time and time again why they have flaws. The Vikings and the Cowboys are more similar than you think. And while I think Kevin O'Connell is an exponentially better head coach than Mike McCarthy, certain guys on that offense, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, there's some comparisons to be made there. Some guys that, you think can have great moments, that you want them so badly to be great, especially if they're your team, but time and time again disappoint and show you why they are not prime time, big time, elite quarterbacks. That's what Dak Prescott is. He is a glorified distributor of the football. He is Kirk Cousins, but a little bit younger. Since I've started putting these clips on social media and putting them on the internet universe and the actual clips and engaging with fans, a lot of you know I do enjoy talking about certain teams more than others. But this is why I try not to get too close to any, athletes or teams or get too emotionally attached to the fans, because I am like an auditor. Week to week, I may very well change my opinion on your team, or I will continue to support them or continue to point out their flaws. And there's plenty of people that love the takes, but I know there's a lot of you that get really frustrated, especially the larger fan bases in the NFL who have been historically mediocre or underachieving. So I know that there's some takes today that are really poking the bear. If you're not on social media and you want to see those clips, and maybe even more importantly, you want to see me stir the pot in the comments, make sure to follow us on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram. It's the same at Ben Cure Show. For those of you in the United States, or for those of you who are celebrating the North American holiday season, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope you all enjoy. We've got 3 great football games going on, and even more sports. We've got basketball. I hope you enjoy the holiday week. I hope you spend it with those you love and care about, and I wish you guys the best of luck until next time. Week 12, I'm super excited. I can't wait to see how things end up. Tonight, the 49ers are playing the Cardinals. It's going to be a big game on prime time. Can't wait to talk more about it next week. Until next time, I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show. And while I'm not always right, I'm never wrong. See you next time.